Alright, so if you are fat, this video is for you. And I'm glad you've clicked on it because I'm gonna tell you everything you need to know in order for you to lose all of your body fat as quickly as physically possible, alright? So, you have to understand how you got here, alright? We're gonna solve the root cause here, alright? I'm not gonna give you any fucking drugs like Ozempic or some shit. Like, that's just a waste of time because it's just gonna cover up the symptoms and not the causes, alright? So, how did you get here? Well, you would think you ate too much and you didn't exercise. That's not true. I mean, well, it probably is technically true, but that's not. There's people like myself who eat too much and don't exercise that much who are not fat. You know, I'm sure you've seen someone who just like eats heaps of garbage and like, they're not fat. So you get confused like, oh, well, why are they fat and I'm not? Well, look, it's because essentially I'm going to begin by telling you that there are three types of fat in our food, alright? You know there's protein, there's carbs, there's fat. There's three types of fat. One is saturated fat, one is monounsaturated fat, and one is polyunsaturated fat. So, saturated fat is dense and it's solid at room temperature, like coconut oil and butter are predominantly saturated. Then you've got monounsaturated fat, which is typically liquid at room temperature, but kind of viscous, like olive oil, for example, all right, or avocado oil. They're examples of that. Then there are the polyunsaturated fats, which are like canola oil, vegetable oil, soybean oil, rapeseed oil. Like, I mean, the list really does. There's like dozens of them, alright? But essentially anything that isn't butter, ghee, coconut oil, beef tallow, or, you know, olive oil, then if it's not one of those, then it's basically a seed oil. And the biggest problem with these is the fact that they're not stable and they oxidize really quickly. Alright? In your body, they oxidize rapidly and they're really, because they're so like viscous, they're not very solid or stable. So every cell in your body has a membrane, alright? And your mitochondria has a membrane. Your cell membranes are made of phospholipids, which is just fat, really, other fatty acids, and cholesterol. But these polyunsaturated fats, when you consume high amounts over years, they will accumulate in every cell in your body. The membrane and the mitochondrial membrane, which is a separate thing inside the cell, that's where the energy is produced. When you accumulate these unsaturated fats in your membranes that oxidize easily and produce harmful chemical byproducts like aldehydes and like HNN4, like there's different compounds that there's dozens of them that are produced when they're oxidized. Alright, these alone are harmful and cause oxidative stress. I think you need to know that. And that is a potential cause of many modern diseases. But the real problem is when they get into your mitochondrial membrane, because they're not stable and they're not actually solid enough, basically you get this thing called electron leak, because the way in which your mitochondria creates ATP is through the electron transport chain, okay? And when it does this, it's like a reactor that creates energy, and the membrane is weak. Electrons leak from the thing, they actually come out of the membrane, and that reduces the efficiency of the mitochondria, and it means it produces less energy relative to the amount of oxygen or substrate that it's got, all right? So in a healthy person, you'd produce a good amount of ATP. When you have metabolic dysfunction, mitochondrial dysfunction, when your membranes are saturated with unstable polyunsaturated fats, the amount of ATP you produce is lower, all right? Now, this alone reduces the amount of energy that your body thinks you have. This lowers your metabolism. In fact, this basically causes a loop where your thyroid hormone produced here, which it tells every cell in your body how much energy it has and how much energy to use, all right? When this happens, the mitochondria essentially is telling your thyroid that there's not enough energy. We have to, and it lowers your metabolism. So if you're actually obese and you've done like a daily calorie expenditure calculator online, because you can search it up, and it says like, oh, you need 2,300 calories a day or something like that. Well, that's not accurate, because that accounts for healthy people with normal mitochondrial function, all right? Someone like yourself, assuming you are fat, typically, I mean, look, there's a spectrum. You could be higher up or lower on how bad you have it with regards to your mitochondrial health, but you're not going to be optimal, because in order to become fat, you basically need mitochondrial dysfunction. So you are not using as much energy as you think you are. Your body is refusing to use 2,300 calories. You're probably using like 1,600 or something. So even if you go into like a calorie deficit, you're not actually hitting a true calorie deficit, because your metabolism is lower than what you think it is. All right? That's a key point. Now, this mitochondrial dysfunction leads to something called insulin resistance, which is when your cells stop responding to insulin, because they stop absorbing glucose as readily. Now, this means that you basically end up not like responding to insulin, which means that your insulin eventually becomes more elevated. And what this does is it causes leptin resistance, because when your insulin is higher, it stimulates the SOCS3 and the PTP1B pathways in your hypothalamus, which essentially dysregulate the cells there to leptin. And leptin is a signal for fullness. When you eat food, it stimulates leptin. All right? And it tells you we're full, we don't need to eat more. But basically, your body still produces leptin, but when you have insulin resistance, it makes your brain stops responding to it, so you stop feeling hungry. Your nervous system doesn't recognize that you've eaten enough food, so it thinks, oh shit, like, we're not full yet, just keep eating. Especially when it tastes like good, because you're eating all these fucking sweets and KFC and shit like that. Then put those two together and you're going to eat a lot more energy than what you need, all right? Because your brain's confused, it doesn't know, all right? So that is a problem, and it's caused, once again, by mitochondrial dysfunction. Now, the thing with the glucose is that every single time like that you're eating carbs and sugar, it's raising your insulin, but it's taking forever to come down. So you have hyperinsulinemia and insulin resistance, all right? That's what causes the leptin resistance, by the way. But also when your muscle cells, your liver, like every organ in your body, your bone cells, your brain cells, your nerve cells, blah, 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 they're not responding to insulin. They're not absorbing glucose. So their energy expenditure is reduced. They're absorbing tiny amounts relative to what they should be. This means there's only one place for it to go. Because where else is it going to go? If it can't go in any cell of your body, well, luckily, there's one cell that will absorb and take in all of this glucose, and it does respond to insulin. When you have this metabolic dysfunction, your fat cells become more responsive, more sensitive to insulin because the membrane is weaker. The actual membrane around it, it basically becomes more permeable, and insulin upregulates the GLUT4 pathway, which basically means glucose can just freely enter the fat cells, all right? And then it just gets turned into fat and you store it, all right? This is the next thing as to why you're fat, is your fat cells are absorbing all of the glucose, and they're really taking it all in, all right? So this will make you fat. Carbs, increasing your insulin. You have insulin resistance anyway. Your fat cells respond really well to insulin, but your muscle cells, your other cells aren't. And yeah, that's essentially how you get fat. All right? You don't feel full. You're always hungry. The food itself is addictive. The sugar is actually addictive. Your leptin isn't functioning properly, and yeah, that's how it works, all right? So exercise, just eat less calories. That's not going to work in a person who is resistant to insulin, all right? In fact, even if you weren't resistant to insulin, it wouldn't be that effective anyway, because when you reduce your calories but you're still eating carbs, you're still activating insulin. Let's say you're healthy, you're still raising insulin. Insulin is the strongest inhibitor of fat burning. In fact, it's the only hormone that has like a huge effect on both storing fat, all right? It tells your body we've got energy, we've got carbs, we need to store it. If your muscle, say you're healthy, right? Say you've got no insulin resistance, whatever. Even in that case, your muscle cells, once they're full of glycogen, they've absorbed as much as they can. Your liver has absorbed as much as it can. What this means is, once again, there's still only one place it can go, and your fat cells will absorb the excess glucose in your bloodstream, even if you're healthy, all right? So that means even in a calorie deficit, whatever, you're still, every time you eat food, it does raise your insulin, especially when it's got protein, and even more when it's got starch, and then even more when it's got sugar, right? So like, say fat slightly increases it, protein increases it a lot, and then starch quite a lot, and then sugar's just like that, all right? Every time you do that, the insulin tells your body fat, even if you're healthy, it tells your body fat, we've got energy, we need to store it. And it tells the other cells, don't burn the fat, we've got carbs, we've got glucose, we don't need to burn fat, all right? And this is real. Insulin 100% inhibits HSL. HSL is hormone sensitive lipase. It's an enzyme that breaks down body fat, all right? And it increases lipoprotein lipase, which is a different enzyme that stores fat in your fat cells, all right? So insulin itself stores fat and blocks any fat burning. Okay, so even if you're in a calorie deficit, and let's say you've got not enough energy to store as fat, you're still blocking fat burning, which means you're not gonna get lean, you're not gonna lose body fat if you keep blocking the signal every fucking 3 hours. All right, does that make sense? And while insulin is technically anti-catabolic, it reduces muscle breakdown and whatever, it's not that strong. So in a case when you're not eating enough energy, your body is still going to conserve energy. Your metabolism is still going to go down. Your body, your thyroid, your energy usage is going to go down. Your insulin isn't going to save your muscle from breakdown, all right? Because every time, because you're in a calorie deficit, you're not getting enough energy. Your body still tries to reduce like the maintenance tasks, all right? Now, this is where growth hormone comes in. It's a completely different hormone. It is antagonistic of insulin, so it has basically sort of the opposite effect of insulin. Growth hormone activates HSL strongly. It increases hormone sensitive lipase, which means it increases fat burning. It activates adipose triglyceride lipase, which is another enzyme that also helps you burn fat. In fact, it's here in my thing. Yes, so growth hormone activates HSL and ATGL, which is adipose triglyceride lipase, and significantly reduces adipose insulin sensitivity. So your fat cells, when there's high growth hormone, they become desensitized to insulin. This is what you need. You need your cells to not, your fat cells to not respond to insulin, but your muscle cells to respond a lot to insulin. This is insulin sensitivity, okay? This means you could eat lots of carbs and you won't get fat. You'll just build muscle, you'll just store glycogen. But that's what you want. But the thing is, while you're fat, you've got all this polyunsaturated fat in you, your fat cells are sensitive to insulin and your muscle cells are not. All right? So how do you increase growth hormone? How do you lower insulin, get it as low as possible? Because when that happens, which there's several things that can do that, all right, when that happens, that means that your body will be favoring fat burning constantly, 24/7. You'll be burning fat like fucking crazy because your body is only using fat for energy, all right? In this situation, your body has no choice. This is what your body fat evolved for, all right? I'm going to tell you. It's fasting. When you're not eating any food for, well, it takes about 18 hours without eating before all of your glycogen in your liver and your muscles gets completely used up. After that, say you do 24 hours, 36 hours, so 1.5 days, 48 hours, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, whatever. Up to around 5 days, growth hormone still increases, all right? And it increases up to 20 times more than the normal baseline levels of growth hormone. 20 times, like that's fucking ridiculous, all right? Could you imagine how strongly it would be activating HSL and ATGL, those enzymes that break down body fat? Could you imagine? When you're not eating any food, like all of the energy that your body uses, say you're using, look, even if you've got insulin resistance, you're still using, say, 1,600 calories of energy every day to maintain your function. Well, if you're purely fasted, there's no more glycogen in your body, it's all used up, you will just be using pure body fat for energy for like days at a time. That's thousands of calories. Within 4 days, you would have burned at least 1 kilogram of fat, just pure fat, all right? Like, pure. There's nothing, it's not muscle, because, and I'll tell you why, growth hormone is possibly one of the strongest anti-catabolic signals in your body. It literally completely, when it goes up to 20 times your baseline, that completely inhibits any muscle protein breakdown, all right? You will not lose any muscle mass until, say, like 5 days. At that point, when you've spent that much time without food, your body will slowly start to break down some of the protein because it needs it, all right? It literally needs it. But even then, you're still not using that much protein because the growth hormone is so high, it's telling you, do not break down the muscle. Now, if you want a explanation as to why this happens, the easiest way is to think about how we evolved. Our ancestors spent we were hunter-gatherers, all right? But we were primarily hunters who chased mammoths and bison and deer across the plains with our spears and bows. In that environment, food scarcity happened often, all right? After we've finished eating our last kill, our last mammoth, all right, which would have lasted, say, a month for the tribe, we would have had to go several days, at least several days without food, possibly weeks at a time, all right? In this situation, you have no choice. You have to burn fat for energy. And so growth hormone would raise that. But with the muscle, imagine if you were burning all your muscle. Imagine just for a moment that you lost all of your muscle mass. You broke down on your muscle. You got super skinny. Could you chase the mammoth? Would you be fast? Would you have stamina? Look, you might have stamina, but would you be fast? Would you be able to chase it? Would you be able to throw your spear hard enough? Would you be able to shoot? Would you even be able to pull your bow? Because you know how heavy that is, like how hard that is, right? Like, if you lost all your strength and your muscle, you would die. You would perish on the plains in pursuit of the mammoth because you weren't strong enough. You weren't powerful enough, fast enough to actually get that mammoth and kill it. That's why we evolved to not break down our muscle, to preserve our muscle, and instead use our fat. The fat was there so that we could obviously stay alive, but also to fuel our muscles so that we can continue ruthlessly pursuing large animals for food, all right? That's why we store body fat. That's its purpose. If you do this where you fast for like 3 days, 4 days, and you do intense exercise, because that also increases growth hormone, you will burn so much fat because this is what it was made for. This is like, if you don't align with its purpose, if you just reduce the amount of energy you eat, but you're still eating like rice every fucking day, like, do you think that's natural? Your body's just going to realize, oh shit, like, I guess we don't need to be strong. We're still getting food, but it's not enough. So we should just like reduce the amount of energy that we use and reduce our muscle mass. There's a huge difference here. I don't know if people get it or not. I know both cases you're still like in a calorie deficit or, you know, but it's really not about that, because if you focus on like a calorie deficit, you're going to do what everyone else does. You're going to do this fucking like eat less food but still eat food like around the clock. Your growth hormone will not go up much. Your insulin will still be rising, and you know, you will never actually burn body fat in the required amounts for you to get lean. Because I'm imagining you like obese, you're overweight, or even if you're not, maybe you're just skinny fat. Maybe you just got a little beer belly or gynecomastia, like, you know, boob mass or whatever. Doesn't matter. This works. This is universal. This works no matter what, because this is how we evolve. This is why we have body fat in the first place. If you're not going to align to it, then expect to never lose your body fat. You will stay fat forever, all right? If you don't do this. Seriously. Because you're not activating the right hormones, the right enzymes, the right biological pathways, epigenetics, in order for you to lose body fat. It's plain and simple, all right? I can explain these scientific fucking like, oh yeah, you know, blah, 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 fucking activates this gene, this like enzyme. You don't even need to know that. All you need to know is you just go into a calorie deficit. Well, no, forget about that. Forget about your fucking calorie deficit. Forget about treadmill, you know, Stairmaster cardio bullshit. That is shit as well. It's not intense enough. It doesn't use that much energy. Where humans are pretty efficient at using, at doing cardio, at doing like low intensity exercise. We're pretty fucking good at it, alright? And that means you're not going to use that much energy. If you do intense exercise, look, if you do walking, your growth hormone does not increase. It stays the same. If you do sprinting, like running as fast as you can, right? For like 50 meters, if you repeat that 4 times or something, honestly, it doesn't matter how far you go or whatever. It's the intensity. The more intense the exercise, the more growth hormone is released, because your body is getting stressed. It needs to, like, it produces growth hormone, all right? thousands of times above the baseline as well. So during the exercise, from studies, they've analyzed this. During the intense exercise, it rises your growth hormone. That will obviously preserve muscle mass and increase fat burning. And then it eventually comes down. But then the night that you sleep, it also rises higher than it normally would. All right? So your growth hormone will increase every time you do this. If you repeatedly do this high intensity exercise whilst fasted, your growth hormone will be fucking 50 times normal. Naturally, no fucking steroids, none of that stuff. And this means your body will favor fat burning as well. Once you've got all your glycogen depleted in your muscles and your liver, well, your insulin will be rock bottom, like the next to zero. Like if you did a blood test 3 days into fasting, you would probably detect negligible, like barely traceable amounts of insulin in your blood, which means your cells are not getting any signal telling them don't burn fat. Then there's no signal telling them to not burn fat. Instead, growth hormone is really high because of the intense exercise, the fasting. It's telling your body, yeah, burn as much fat as possible. That's the only energy we have. And as well, if you are fat, you've got plenty of fat. You've got nothing, like, you've really got nothing to lose. You've got heaps of body fat. You've got heaps to lose. Like, there's no problem. Okay? Alright. Now, that's not to mention that ketosis is more metabolically healthy. It is anti-inflammatory. Ketones, like beta hydroxybutyrate is one of the main ones. That's produced from your fat. That's anti-inflammatory. That reduces oxidative stress. And as well, this is how you can get rid of all the accumulated polyunsaturated fat from your body. Because if you're still eating, your body won't actually secrete enough fat. Okay, you won't burn through all that stupid oxidized unsaturated fat that you've been storing in your cells and your fat cells. All right, this fasting will literally draw all of that out and oxidize it, use it for energy. And yeah, that's the secret, bro. That's it. And one last thing, adrenaline, which is a catecholamine, it's a type of hormone, of course, is massively activated when you do sprinting, high intensity exercise. If you do like heavy lifting, like say you did a max deadlift, your adrenaline will go up because intense exercise activates catecholamines and adrenaline. When you're fasted, your baseline catecholamines go up. Catecholamines are the strongest fat burning hormone at all, ever. Ridiculously. In fact, according to studies, let's say in a normal state after a meal, you're burning a tiny amount of body fat for energy. You're oxidizing slight amounts of fat, whatever. Say it's like this much. However much that is, when you activate adrenaline in high amounts, within like a few minutes, you increase the amount of body fat you burn by like 20 times more from studies. Okay, it is the strongest. Yeah, it is ridiculously powerful. It phosphorylates hormone-sensitive lipase, which is HSL, that's the enzyme, and adipose triglyceride lipase, which is the other enzyme. Those are the two enzymes I told you about before that they force your body to burn fat. All right? So, that's the secret. That's it, bro. That's all you gotta do. Seriously, like, there's other things like, say, cold exposure. If you get into a cold shower, that increases adrenaline, catecholamines. You use more energy because you got to keep your body warm, thermogenesis. That can help you as well. Sunlight, vitamin D, that's good for you as well. That helps improve body fat burning and stuff like that. They found that blue light from the sun can penetrate your fat cells and increase fat burning. Okay, that's another thing. But like at the end of the day, the focus has got to be on fasting and high intensity exercise. All right, because calorie deficit and cardio and like gentle exercise, like going for a jog or a walk or bike ride, it doesn't use enough energy. It doesn't. You're not gonna use enough energy. Like, you gotta understand how much energy is actually stored in your body fat right now. If you're like 150 kilos, like if you're like 300 pounds, like the amount of energy in your body is ridiculous. It's gonna take you fucking decades. If you do a calorie deficit, it'll take you decades to do this. If you did what I'm telling you, with the fasting for like 3-4 days, then like break your fast, eat high protein, nutrient rich food that will amplify your metabolism, your thyroid, and replenish nutrients in your cells, give you muscle, like, protein for that. Then, and just repeat that over and over again whilst doing high intensity exercise. There is no outcome that is possible other than you getting lean within like a year, easily. Please listen to me, please, bro, because this will save your life, bro. Like, you don't want to be fat forever. You don't want to die early because you've got heart disease and like, you've got like all this oxidative stress or whatever because you're fat. You don't want that. Like, it's now or never, bro. This is the best time to ever get lean, bro. So anyway, if you want to learn more from me, I've got a whole damn YouTube channel. It's got heaps of videos covering pretty much the same stuff. But there's other things as well that I haven't covered in this video. If you want to learn more, you can click on that. Subscribe if you'd like. I don't really care, but it'll help you. And I'm releasing a school community where if you join, yes, it costs money, but if you join, I will be coaching you. I'll be doing one-on-one or group coaching calls with you and everyone else. And there's a course in there. There's a full fat loss course teaching you basically everything about how to get lean, all the diet, the hormones, exercise, all the different lifestyle factors too. Alright, bro. If this helps you, fuck. Alright, thank you for watching. Good luck, bro.